Since we'll be talking about Adar and Simcha, and we're going to talk a lot about laughter tonight and what real laughter is, the definition of laughter, what it means, what the essence of what laughter is and what Purim is. So it's always good if you're giving a shiur about laughter, then it's good to start with a joke or two. The truth is, my kids provided them for me, because you see, Adar, right, in the schools is always the time for jokes and pranks. The problem is, what happens when you're not in school? So how do you pull those jokes on the teachers that you normally would in a regular Rosh Chodesh Adar? But the ingenuity of Jewish secondary school kids, is quite remarkable. So one of my kids, I don't want to say who it is because it's not entirely fair on them. One of the kids said that what they did in one lesson was they all came onto the lesson with the same Zoom name of the kid who got the top grade the previous year. And they kept all their screens off and muted, and they all had the same name of this kid who got the top result. So there was nothing the teacher could do because they didn't got a clue who any of the kids. I thought it was quite funny. And the other one said they all came on one class with the next name in the register, so that all of the names were there, but they weren't them. You know what I mean? They were the next name in the register. Anyway, I'm not giving anyone ideas, but I think don't put it past our kids to still come up with the same shticks they do every year. But moving on. So this evening we're going to talk about the surprising Simcha of Adar. In order to do that, I'm going to take you straight into the Megillah, and I think that I would like to look at an aspect of the Megillah that I think we sometimes overlook, and that's because we often don't get to understanding the end part. And really, the end part of the Megillah is the most surprising of all, because everyone, and especially the kids, feel this. They wait to get to the first one, right? They get to the end of the 7th parak, and then Haman is hanged, and then they're like, okay, can we go home now? But of course, then you have 2 very long parakim after that. You have the whole of the 8th parak and the 9th parak. But there's this whole long description about what happens afterwards and how they resolve things and how the battle happens and how Purim is enshrined for future generations. So the question is, how do we understand particularly Perek Ches? Perek Ches is very confusing. So let's take a look at that. Let's take a look at this. I'm going to try and share my screen so you can see it. Okay, right, here we go. Can we see this? Yeah, okay. Yeah, is that all right? Can you see the screen? Good. So,
yes, we can.
Good, great. So what we're doing, let me just move okay, there we go. Move this out of the way. Right. Okay, so the first, initially you have obviously the decree itself. That's in Perek Gimel Pasuk Yud Gimel. They send out these messengers to all the countries of the king, to destroy all the Jews, from young to old, the men and women, the children, the women. One day, the 13th of the 12th month, which is the month of Adar, and their spoil will be. They will take all the spoil as well and despoil them, if you like. So that's the initial decree. And then you come to the 8th parak. Now, the story before this is the end of the 7th parak is Haman is hanged, right? That's the end of the 7th parak. Haman is hanged. And then it says, on that day, the king Achashverosh gave to Esther Malka as Beis Haman Tzorah HaYehudim, the house of Haman. So she gets his house. So Mordechai comes from the king because Esther's told him about their relationship. The Melech removes his ring that he's taken from Haman. Mordechai gives it to Mordechai. And he gives it to Mordechai, and he gives Mordechai. Esther puts Mordechai al Beis Haman. So Mordechai is now in charge of Haman. And then we have Esther entreats the king. And she entreats him, and she says to him, he says, please do something with the evil that Haman has done and his intention on the Jews. What does the king do? The king removes his signet ring, his Shaved Azov. He extends his not his signet ring, he extends his scepter. She stands in front of the king. She says, if it's good, the king, and I find favor in his eyes, so she asks, and she pleads, I want to change them. I want to bring them back. Those letters that he has sent to destroy the Jews, And she says, how can I bear to see the destruction of my people? And the king says, I've given Haman's house to Esther, and I've hanged him on a tree. He says, do write about the Jews as you wish, in the name of the king, and sign because I cannot grant your request. That's what he's saying here. Why? Because whatever has been issued in the name of the king and is sealed with the signet ring of the king, ein lahoshiv, you cannot retract it. You're stuck. There's nothing you can do. Now, he's therefore saying like this: the letter that Haman sent to destroy the Jews can't be retracted. I'm sorry, there is nothing you can do about that. You have to think of a different plan. And the different plan is that Esther and Mordechai have to come up with some way of defending themselves. That's the only thing they're allowed to do, right? That's what. But the decree itself to destroy the Jews remains in place. Now, why is that significant? By the way, you see here this emphasis on the machsheves Haman Adar. You see that she emphasizes the machsheves in the bold print. She emphasizes the machshev, the thinking of Haman, the plan of Haman. Why? Because she's trying to say to the king, "Listen, I'm not blaming you for this." Right? It's all Haman. It's not you. She's trying to distinguish Achashverosh from Haman. She's being very careful how she phrases things here. What you notice is, Vayikoru Sofer HaMelech, the next pasuk says, the Sofer HaMelech, they were called B'chodesh HaShlishi on the third month through Chodesh Sivan. So the 23rd of Sivan, they write out that which Mordechai wants to now send to the Jews, and all the ones in charge and everything else, different names for the rulers of the kingdoms, from Hodu, Kush, the 127 countries, and they're going to send out what to do, and they're going to send to the Jews each according to their own languages. Fine. But why is there a gap here? Why is there a gap here of basically 2 months? You know, this whole event, when is the timeline of the Megillah is very interesting. All the event themselves, the hanging of Haman, take place in Nisan. They take place in Nisan. But there's a 2-month delay, because they don't end up sending out the letters until the 23rd of Sivan. So the question is why? The question is why, right? Why did they do that? Why is it that they wait? They wait 2 months to sending out. What is the purpose of this wait? So the
I'm listening to a share.
Yeah, let's just mute a second. Okay.
That's like Jake.
There we go. Right. So what's going on here? What's going on here is that Mordechai wanted, Yosef Lekach, one of the Mephoshim on the Megillah says, that Mordechai wants to use the same couriers. Why? Because he needs to add legitimacy to the second letter. Why? You've got to put yourself in the minds of the Jews. We read the Megillah, we think, once Haman is hung, everything's wonderful. The situation is solved, everything's on the up now, it's all good. Not good at all. They are terrified for their lives. Why? Because the decree stands. They're still going to be destroyed. Haman's followers are still going to fight them. They're still going to do all these nasty things. It's terrible. Destruction is in the air. The only thing they can do is to defend themselves. And in order to do that, they want to give themselves the greatest chance possible. The greatest chance they have of defending themselves is by waiting until the couriers that have gone out with Haman's letter a couple of months earlier come back, right, to Shushan, and then they send the same messengers out again with a new letter. And the new letter is basically going to say, and that's the ensuing psukim, they write in the name of the king Achashverosh, and they sign with his signet ring, and they send out all the letters, that which the king has granted to the Jews in every city. They're allowed to defend themselves. Etc. They're going to defend and kill all those people who are trying to get them. And it's done on one day. They're going to do this on this one day, the 13th day of the month of Adar. They're given this ability. What they are able to do is effectively modify the Pasheg and Haksav is like the public decree, and they are able to modify that public decree to enable them to attack first. Okay, you understand? The more specific original edict can't be changed, but they can modify it in a very clever way to enable them to strike the first blow, and they hope that will lead to their salvation.
That's what they hope, and that's their plan. And it's a very complicated plan, and they have to put it in place by wording things in a very clever way to give them the day earlier they can start the fight. They have to wait for the same couriers to give themselves the best chance of success. That is what is really going on in this parak. Why is this significant? At the end of the day, we know the story, right? At the end of the day, they won. So why is it significant? The fact that the decree is never rescinded, and the fact that they are only able to rescue themselves through this incredible, if you like, help from Shemayim, from heaven, that they're able to turn the tables, even though the decree still stands. The point is that the decree of Purim is real, it existed, and most importantly of all, it was never, ever rescinded. It was never rescinded. We are misunderstanding the entire Purim story. If we learn the story of the Megillah, that there was a decree to destroy the Jews, we were saved from the decree, and the decree was nullified. That's not true. Says Ramosha Shapiro. We don't have Yomim Tovim like that. We don't have Yomim Tovim like that, where there was a decree against us which could have come to pass, but in fact, it was cancelled. He says there would be no celebration. We don't have celebrations, he says, for people changing their mind, thinking something would do something to us, but never happening. That's not how it is. The Yom Tov of Purim, he says, is much, much more significant than this. It is about the fact that somehow the decree still exists, and yet we're saved. Inexplicably, the decree is there. They're there to destroy the Jews, and somehow we're saved, right? Through the intervention of Hashem, we have this salvation. But it's not that the decree doesn't exist. It's not that the decree is cancelled. The decree is there, and yet we're still able to laugh. And that, he says, fundamentally, is what the nature of our ongoing struggle with Amalek. When you look at if you look at the next source, the rest of the parak there is talking about, obviously, he's talking about how Mordechai goes out in celebration, and the Yehudim, they have the Ora of Simcha, V'sos, and Vikar. They know they have a chance to be able to save themselves. You look at the pasuk in the end of, we learn this on Purim morning. It is the actual description of the battle with Amalek. Vayomer Hashem el Moshe. Hashem says to Moshe, "Kesov zos zikaron b'sefer." Write this in a book. The symbols ne Yehoshua. Ki mochayim cher zeicher Amalek mitachas hashamayim. I will wipe out the memory of Amalek from underneath the heavens. Vayiven Moshe mizbech. Moshe builds an altar. Vayikra shmei Hashem Nisi, and he calls the altar Hashem Nisi. Hashem is my miracle. Vayomer, and he said, Ki yod al keis ka. There is a hand on the throne of Hashem. Milchamol Hashem ba'Amalek midor dor. There's a battle with Hashem against Amalek from generation to generation. The essence of our struggle with Amalek is the fact that it is ongoing, that it doesn't end, that it continues from generation to generation. And therefore, what we need to understand is like this. What is the real meaning behind the joy and the celebration of Purim? If the battle of Amalek, right, which began when the Jews left Egypt, continues. You go through the whole story of Purim and it doesn't end. The decree continues. Amazingly, they have a reprieve and they're able to catch them out first and defeat them this time. But the struggle with Amalek doesn't end, it carries on. What is the great joy of Purim? What is the celebration? And for this, we need to understand, following the approach of Ramosha Shapiro, who's a beautiful and fascinating idea here, we need to understand the essence of what real laughter is. And with that, we can understand what the laughter of Purim is, what the joy of Purim, and why it is that Purim is such a joyful experience. What is the real laughter and the real joy? For that, we need to go back to the Torah. As always, whenever you want to understand a concept, you go back to the primary source. What is the primary source of where laughter is described in the Torah? The real essence of laughter, of Simcha. And the answer is Yitzchak. Yitzchak's name means laughter. That's what his name means. So let's look at Yitzchak's story. Yitzchak is named after laughter, right? Why is Yitzchak named after laughter? Why? We see that they're going to bring you a few sources here, but of course you see that here. Right. We'll see. We'll see. Okay, we'll go through the time. We'll go through them in order. We know that Yitzchak is called laughter because Sarah says, where is it? That's right here. Kol Hashemei Yitzchakli, right? Sarah says Hashem has made laughter for me once she gives birth, and she says Kol Hashemei, anyone who listens Yitzchakli will be joyous for me. So Yitzchak's name is not simcha, it's not joy, it's not celebration, it is laughter. And if you think about it, it's a bit strange. Laughter is just it's a bit like laughing. It seems a bit like sneezing. It's just a human reaction, right? We laugh, we sneeze, we yawn. No, what is the significance of naming Yitzchak after laughter? And also, laughter permeates everything about really Yitzchak's life, right from before he's born until after he's born as well. So the first time that Avraham Avinu is told that he's going to have a son, Perek Yud Zayin, Posuk Yud Zayin, it says, "Vayipol Avram al panav Yitzchak." Avram fell on his face and he laughed. Vayom, and he said, "Belibo," in his heart, "Halven me'ah shana yivoled." 100-year-old, someone 100 years old. Is it possible for such a birth to give birth? Can Sarah, who's 90 years old, give birth? It's impossible. He says, "I can't believe it," and he laughs. He laughs. But as we know, not all the laughter around the time of Yitzchak's birth is the same. And this is very, very important. What do we have at the beginning of Parshas Vayera? And Sarah believes she is clearly past childbearing age. And Sarah laughs at herself and says, is it possible for me to become young again? And my master is elderly. And Hashem says to Avram, and Hashem says to Avraham, why is Sarah laughed? Again, laughter the whole way through. Why is Sarah laughed to say, can I possibly give birth when I'm elderly? Hashem says, is anything too far from me? I will come back the next time. And next year, Sarah will have a child. And then we have one of the strangest psukim in the whole of Tanakh. V'techachesh Sarah, and Sarah denied. Lemor saying, Lo tzachakti, I did not laugh. Ki yoreh, because I was afraid. Vayom aloi, and he says, because she was afraid. That's why she did it. She said that because she was afraid. Vayom aloi, and he said, no, ki tzachakt, because for you have laughed, for you did laugh, right? This seems inexplicable. It's inexplicable. We can't understand what's going on here. How is it possible? That Hashem would challenge Avraham Avinu and say, why did Sarah laugh, right? Is anything beyond Hashem? Of course she'll have a child. And then Sarah says, no, I did not laugh. And he says, yes, you did. You did laugh. What's going on? You did laugh. You didn't laugh. She denies it. She doesn't. The whole dialogue here seems incredibly difficult to understand. Did she really flatly deny in front of Hashem himself that she laughed? What's going on? The answer is, says Rav Moshe Shapiro, like this. Laughter permeates everything about Yitzchak's existence, Yitzchak's birth. But not all laughter is the same. There are two types of laughter in this world, and we've all experienced both of them. There is a type of laughter which focuses on the beginning when someone starts something, okay? A person starts out with grand plans, absolutely sure they're going to succeed in some incredible new initiative. They have amazing plans, and they've got all these amazing ideas. And they take a deep breath and are about to begin, and then someone laughs. A little laugh, a mocking sort of laugh. And they're saying, what are you starting this for? There's no point. In other words, the end is already here. The laughter says, come on, you know what's going to happen. You know it's going to turn out. This isn't going to work. That's not going to work. And they laugh. That's the mocking type of laugh. We've all been in situations like that. We've been in a meeting or something and someone has a wonderful idea. And then someone else sort of, whether it's intentional or not, there's a sort of laugh which says, come on, it's never going to work, right? That's the laughter which cuts something off right at the beginning. It's a laughter which says, it's over, you can't possibly succeed. But then there's another type of laughter. There's a type of laughter which is when someone gets to the end of doing something. Someone has already achieved something incredible, and the laughter says, why are you stopping now? You're already at the end. You can create something new even from the end. You've done so well. You've done so much. You've reached the end, and there can still be life beyond the end. There's something new. You can create a new project out of the end of this one. That laughter, okay? The laughter which says, keep going, is a positive laughter. It's a laughter which supports. It's a laughter of new birth. It is a laughter which says, you're focusing on something which looks like the end of a process. It's not really the end of a process. It's actually the beginning of the process. You've arrived at a new beginning from the very end itself. And the greatest example that we have in our human experience of that type of laughter is the laughter when a baby is born, right? Because the baby is born signifies, the birth of a baby signifies the end of a process, right? It's the end of a process. The 9 months are over. And suddenly, why is everyone so happy? Because incredibly, there's a new beginning from the end. The end of the process leads to a new beginning. Why is it that when Yitzchak is born, those beautiful pesukim, you have the source here. Avram says, Avram calls his name Avram, sorry, Yitzchak. He calls it Yitzchak, and he gives him bris milah. But Sarah says, Hashem has made laughter for me. Anyone who hears Yitzchak is going to laugh for me. Why? Because it's impossible. There is an impossibility around Yitzchak's birth, and yet he exists. It's a laughter which says there is a new beginning from the end itself. That type of laughter, that positive laughter, the laughter which says this is impossible, yet it has become possible, is the real laughter that's created around Yitzchak's birth. And it is a laughter which comes to symbolize Yitzchak's entire personality and even perhaps almost like his mission in life. So let's be clear. We have negative laughter and positive laughter. Negative laughter looks at people who start something and it cuts them off in the middle. It mocks them. It says, you're never going to get to the end. Positive laughter looks at the end and says, laugh now, because you have hope, because you can begin something again, even though you thought you were at the end. So let's go back now now we have these two types of laughter, and we'll come back to the significance of Yitzchak's name in a minute. But let's first understand this particular parsha, the one where we have the dialogue between Hashem and Sarah, right? Where Hashem says, why are you laughing? And Sarah says, I didn't laugh. What is going on here? What's really going on here, says Rav Moshe Shapiro, is that Hashem's challenge to Sarah, somewhere hidden inside her laugh, was unfortunately the laugh of disbelief, the laugh of negative laugh, the laugh which says you can't be serious. This is not going to happen. You know, that laughter that is at the beginning of the process. The laughter says, you know, I'm too old. It's not going to happen. That type of laughter. And she denies because she was frightened. And she says, no, my laugh was entirely positive. It was the positive laugh. But Hashem says, no, you did laugh. And in laughter, unfortunately, there was some negative association in that laugh. And as a result, because Yitzchak symbolizes laughter in all its forms, as a result of that, that sort of putting forward the idea of laughter into the world, what we have is an introduction of both types of laughter, and they both continue to exist, both the negative and the positive. And you see that in Bereshis Perek Pasuk Tes. Vatera Sarah es ben Hagar mitzris, right? Yishmael, she sees Yishmael, she yelled at Avraham. What does he do? Mitzachek. That word again, mitzachek. He laughs. Which type of laughter is this? For this, you can tell me. Obviously, this is the negative laughter, right? This is mocking. That's what he's doing. He's mocking. He's making fun. There's all sorts of interpretations in Chazal. What exactly he was doing was he was winding him up, whatever it was. But the fact is, this is clearly the negative laughter, the mitzachek. That is unfortunately introduced because there is an element of the negative laugh existing within Sarah's response, and that's something which I'll have to face later on. Sarah herself has to face that. Sarah Imenu has to face that mocking laughter of Yishmael and her son Yitzchak. But what does Yitzchak himself represent? Yitzchak represents the power of true, real laughter The laughter that can look at a hopeless situation and say, no, there is still hope. And you see that both in Yitzchak's birth, because his birth is an impossibility, yet it's possible. It's not possible, but it is possible, and it happens inexplicably. And of course, it comes out most powerfully in the Akedah itself, right? The whole essence of the Akedah it defies logic, because Yitzchak is bound on the Mizbeach, he's bound on the altar, Avram is standing there with a knife, and then something happens, and he's not killed. The Malach says, no, stay your hand. Again, it's not logical. It's an intervention min hashamayim that goes against what should happen. And the Zohar says that Yitzchak's name reveals this. Because if you look at Yitzchak's name, the letters Yud, Sadi, and Ches, and Kuf, and you rearrange the letters, what do you get? Ketz, Chai, the end, and then there's life, right? From the end, there's life. From the very end, from nothing, from hopelessness, you get life again. That's what Yitzchak epitomizes. That is what his life represents. He's a person who is born through impossibility and yet lives, which itself is something to laugh about. And he's someone who goes through an experience, which is an impossibility, and yet still lives again afterwards. Now, this type of laughter is very important for us, because if you think about this on a very, very simple level, if you think about we can understand this in just looking at what laughter itself is. Laughter, if you think about it, is always the funniest things in life are things which are impossible, are things which, someone says something and it creates a situation, a joke, if you like. Jokes are always like this. The funniest jokes are ones where you're not expecting the ending, right? You're not expecting the ending, and all of a sudden the whole thing is turned on its head, and that's what causes laughter, where an impossible situation arises from the possible. Yitzchak epitomizes this in other areas as well. There is a very, very beautiful chazal in the Gemara in Shabbos, which talks about the fact that in the future, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will say to Avram Avinu, your children have sinned. This is not in the sources. And he'll say to him, Avram says, what can we do? You'll have to wipe them out. Unfortunately, if they've sinned, there's nothing we can do to save them. And he says, well, Hashem says, let me go to Yaakov, because Yaakov struggled with his own children. So Yaakov's going to understand how much there's a need to have mercy. Maybe he'll daven for them. And he says the same thing to Avram Avinu. The Gemara is in Shabbos Pei Tesam with base 89b. He says like this. He says to Yaakov Avinu, your children have sinned. And he says to Yaakov, Yaakov says back to Hashem, I'm sorry, there's nothing we can do. If they've sinned, then I'm afraid they'll have to be wiped out. Difficult to understand why they're not defending them, but listen to how the Torah continues. Hashem says, I can't get anything out of the older ones, Avram, and all the younger ones, Yaakov, so I have to go to Yitzchak. He says to Yitzchak the same thing, your children have sinned, what should I do? And Yitzchak says, are they my children and they're not your children? Right? When they said at Mahar Sinai last week's parsha, Nasev and Nishma, did you not call them my children? They called them my son, B'ni B'chori Yisrael, they're my firstborn son. That's the first response Yitzchak gives. And then he says like this, he says, hold on a second, let's work out how much did they actually sin. Yitzchak says to Hashem, how long is a person's life? 70 years, average lifespan. Subtract the first 20 years of life because there's no punishment in terms of heavenly matters of that till that age. 50 years left, okay? And then Yitzchak says, take off 25 years of the 50 because 25 years approximately half the time you're going to spend sleeping, so that you can't sin when you're sleeping. So that's half gone as well. But you're left with 25 years of the 70. Take off 12 and a half years of those 25. It will be used up between the time you're davening, eating, using the bathroom, all those times when you're busy with normal human activities. What's left? 12 and a half years. He says, if you can bear those 12 and a half years and forgive the sins in those 12 and a half years, then fine. And if not, I'll take half and you take half. We'll go halves on those sins, Yitzchak says, the sins of the Jewish people. We'll go halves. That's what Yitzchak says. It's a remarkable Gemara. And if you say that all of them are mine, Yitzchak says, I have to bear the brunt of all of those averos. He says, I'm going to remind you that I sacrificed my soul before you. I was the one who went on the Mizbeach. I went on Mizbech for the Akedah, and you should forgive them due to my merits. And then the Gemara carries on, and the Jewish people say to Yitzchak, Ovinu Ato, you are our father. Yitzchak is the one who defends the Jewish people. What do we see from here? The essence of Yitzchak Avinu is to look at a situation and say, it looks impossible. Hashem says, unfortunately, the Jewish people have sinned. I don't know how I can redeem them. And Yitzchak finds a way through. Somehow finds a way through. And even if Hashem would say to him, I'm afraid I can't do this. He says, remember the Akedah. I'm the one who comes through in impossible situations, and there's still laughter. Says Moshe Shapiro. With this, we can understand what the real laughter of Purim is. The real laughter of Purim is the fact that the decree of Haman was real. It really existed. The decree of Haman was real. It was not something that didn't exist. It was something which was never rescinded. And yet from the decree itself, from the very end, we somehow managed to bring out a new existence, a new hope to live again. And that is real laughter. That is hilarious, basically, because the real positive type of laughter is when a decree is issued, it continues towards the very end, the decree keeps going, and we're still here. We take a step after the end, like Yitzchak and Yakedah, Ketz Chai, the end is there and we're still alive. Don't know how, but we're still here. And suddenly you have a new beginning. And that's why you have, after that point in the Megillah, La Yehudim Ha'Sa'or of Simcha, there's light and gladness and joy. And it's genuinely humorous because we're reaching past the end. And this, if you like, also helps us understand, and this perspective on the two versions of laughter helps us understand two other psukim in Tanakh. In Koheles, this brings out really this clear difference between the two types of laughter. In Koheles, you have this pasuk, which where in the Megillah of Koheles, it criticizes the laughter of the fool. That's like the noise of the pot, I think, which bubbles, right? Or the noise that a pot makes on the fire. That is the laughter of the fool. That's vanity, it's emptiness. That type of laughter is nothingness, it's emptiness. The natural order of the world is that the laughter of the fool is this idea as making fun of this, where life itself is treated as a laughing matter, that laughing of mockery. That's the skok haksil, that's the laughter of the fool, and the laughter which says, oh, you can never really achieve things in life. Our laughter is most powerfully and beautifully expressed. The proper type of laughter, the second type of laughter, is expressed in this pasuk in Mishlei, which we're all familiar with from Eishes Chayil. Oiz v'hodar levusha, her garment is strength and splendor, vatischak liyom acharon, and she laughs at the last day. What does that mean, she laughs at the last day? What does it mean she laughs at the last day? She laughs at the ability to live and to have hope when it seems impossible. On that very last day, she's still laughing. That's the laughter which is at the end, like the laughter of childbirth. The laughter which says at the end of a process, birth happens again. That is the concept of laughter, where you transform the end point into a new beginning. That is what it means. Of course, that is the laughter as well, which we have here on the final source in the sheet, right? Ozi the tilim, right, from Shir Amalas. Ozi mole schok pinu. What's going to happen when Mashiach comes? Our mouth will be filled with laughter. What's the laughter? The laughter is, it's not possible. We're still here. Mashiach has come. It's incredible. And we're laughing. We're laughing at our survival. That's what's happening. You also have with this the idea of why Yom Kippur is like Purim. The same idea. Famously, Yom Kippur is Yom Kippurim. Yeah? Which one is which? Which is like which? So the answer, suggests from Moshe Shapiro, is that the origins of Yom Kippur, right, is of course forgiveness after the Egel Azov. Yeah, this is what happens, right? Before that, Hashem says, with the golden calf, Hashem says, leave me, hanichali, I'm going to destroy them. There's no possibility of salvation. Somehow what happens? Moshe Rabbeinu davens for the Jewish people, right? And what happens? They achieve new life. All of a sudden, you have a second set of luchos. It doesn't make sense. What do you mean? They're smashed, they're gone, it's finished, the end, and yet there's a beginning again. That's why Yom Kippur is like Purim, right? Because Yom Kippur is that day. Yom Kippur is the day when Hashem forgives the Jewish people in a situation which defies belief. It seems to be impossible. It's vatischak l'yom acharon. It's laughter at the final day. And that's why Yom Kippur is like Purim, where you have the end leads somehow to a new beginning, the opportunity to live again. A beautiful, beautiful insight. I also think that from this idea, we can understand so much more about what Purim is. Purim is not a decree which gets cancelled, a reversal. It's a laughter of hope, and it's a laughter of somehow managing to survive through it all, despite it all. And for me, what that does is it changes the perspective on Purim, and it brings it to such powerful and contemporary relevance to our lives and how we live all the time. Let me bring you an example of how this works. Some of you may have heard of a remarkable book which was published a couple of years ago by a Holocaust survivor named Edith Eger. Yeah, it's called The Choice. Some of you probably read it, may have read the story, may have read the book. If you haven't read it, it's incredible, worth reading. She was a lady originally from Hungary. She was actually made to dance for Mengele. Her back was broken. She barely survived. Towards the end of the war, she, together with other prisoners, moved to Austria. And on May the 4th, 1945, there was a young American soldier who noticed her hand moving amongst a number of dead bodies, and he summons medical help, and she's brought back from the brink of death. Anyway, some 40 years later, she tells the whole story at great length in her book, aged 53, she receives a letter in the post that changes her life. And by that time, she trained as a psychologist. She was extensive work, or a psychotherapist, I'm not sure which one. She used extensive work with trauma. She worked through her own trauma and that of others. And the letter was from a senior US Army chaplain, inviting her to address 600 chaplains at a workshop the following month. And where was the workshop going to take place? The workshop was going to take place at the Berchtesgaden. The Berchtesgaden was Hitler's retreat in the Bavarian mountains. And that was where she was asked to address 600 United States Army chaplains, right? Can you imagine? She had a huge dilemma whether to go. And she decided to go in the end, and she described her arrival with her husband. And they were in a hotel called the Zum Turken. It was the same hotel where Chamberlain stayed in 1938 in his infamous attempt to wave his piece of paper, achieving peace in our time, which was not to be. It was a very short walk from the Berghof, which was what Hitler called, called the Eagle's Nest, which is where his retreat in the Bavarian mountains. She and her husband were given Goebbels' bedroom, of all places to stay in. So she was staying the night in Goebbels' former bedroom, right? And she describes her feelings and what that felt like and everything else. The next day, she addressed the 600 chaplains, and she'd been asked to talk about holding on to hope, even after being stripped of everything, after starving, being left for dead. And this is what she said. She said like this to these 600 chaplains. She said, in human history, there is war. There is cruelty, there is violence, there is hate. But never in the history of humankind has there ever been a more scientific and systematic annihilation of a people. I survived Hitler's horrific death camps, she said. Last night I slept in Joseph Goebbels' bed. And people ask me, how did you learn to overcome the past? Overcome? She said, overcome. I haven't overcome anything. Every beating, bombing, and selection line, every death, every column of smoke pushing upward, every moment of terror when I thought it was the end, these live on in me, in my memories and my nightmares. The past isn't gone. It isn't transcended or excised. It lives on in me. But so does the perspective. It has afforded me that I live to see liberation because I kept hope alive in my heart. And I think what she is saying here, her message was, I don't overcome anything. I didn't overcome anything. The past, the decree, that evil decree is present. It's with me all the time, as are all the other evil decrees of Jewish history. We never overcome them. They live on. They live on in our hearts. We don't get over them. It's impossible. But what lives with us in our hearts is the laughter that comes after the end, the ability to somehow see hope in the future. That's, by the way, certainly in my experience, the most common response from survivors as to how they survived is they said, we had to carry on living. We had to create a new life for ourselves. That's what we had to do. That was our mission. Our mission was to somehow recreate life, to have hope after, to have laughter after the end somehow. The laughter which says, as she does, that somehow after the end, I've kept hope alive in my heart. She lost most of her family in the Holocaust, but the hope allowed her somehow to smile again. And I think that's the same smile you see on pictures of those who arrived in what was then Palestine after just 3 years after the war. You know, we've all seen those pictures, right? Incredible pictures. And they get off the ships and they arrive in Jaffa, they arrive in Jaffa, and you see the smiles on their face. What are those smiles? They're not smiles of forgetting the past. It's a laughter of seeing impossible hope from the end, after the decree. That is the laughter of Yitzchak's miraculous birth. It is a laughter which says you have a new beginning from the very end itself, from an impossible situation. And perhaps we can say that it is that very same laughter of Purim, the laughter which says, which you've always brought, which you've brought, that says you've brought out a new existence, new life from the end itself, that it is that laughter which has always sustained us as a people. That is the depth of meaning behind Purim and why it fits so well with that tragic attack of Amalek. Because the story of Jewish history is that we don't talk about decrees which almost happened, but in the end, everything was okay. No, that's so simplistic. That's not what Jewish history is like. We all know that. Jewish history, tragically, has so often been the decrees have happened. And Purim too, the decree is not rescinded. That's the message. We're talking about things which happened, things which stay with us always. That's what they do. They stay with us. We don't overcome anything ever, but we can laugh at our survival. And being able somehow as a people to take the first step after the end itself, the step which is mathematically impossible, it's statistically impossible, it's as impossible as Yitzchak Avinu being born, it's as impossible as Yitzchak Avinu surviving the Akedah, it's impossible, and yet it still exists. Just as in the future, Yitzchak will be the one that will defend us against all the odds. With all the things that we've done wrong, he will defend us and say, no, you have a reason to survive. You can still be saved. And as we did on Purim, that's how we face the challenges we face today as well in the same way. And that was her message, Edith Eger's message that day in Germany, in that place of infamous cruelty. And that, I think, is the eternal message of Purim itself. It's the Jewish message of hope, of laughing despite everything. It is the message of Vatischak liyom hacharon. Laughter is the essence of Purim. It's the essence of Adar. It's simcha, which is surprising because it's so bizarre. It's so hilarious because it shouldn't happen at all. It's vatischak liyom acharon. It's laughing on the last day because there's another day after the last day. How can that be? And yet it is. We exist, we survive as a people. That is a message which I think we can take with us in our hearts and can continue to give us tremendous strength through Purim and through everything we experience in the world that we live in, however bizarre it seems to be. I hope you all enjoyed that and take those ideas with you into Purim and the month of Adar. We should all have a month which is indeed full of Or, of a simcha, of light and joy in Yitzhak Hashem, and have a good week and a good Chodesh.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Pleasure.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Great pleasure. Thank you for joining.